Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I hope you will indulge me talking about all of the TV shows, video games, and books that I have been loving recently. First up, I have been blowing through animes. One of my big goals at the end of last year was to finish the animes that I was currently watching. Now, I didn't manage to get to that mostly because my December was spent very sick and doing end of year wrap up things at work and stuff like that. So I have been carrying that goal over into the new year. Yesterday or the day before, I finished the first season of Lord of Mysteries based on my partner's recommendation. He did say like it's pretty confusing, but it's good. So I started it and I was immediately hooked on this story. Basically, this is about a guy named Klein, kind of an isekai situation where he dies and is transported into a body in another world. There's a lot of like magic going on, leveling up through potions, and there's different levels of ascendance that are involved that you can reach essentially godhood through taking these potions and like leveling up your magic. There's a bunch of like dark stuff, dark themes, dark cults, dark magic. There's a lot of mystery surrounding the main character, Klein. He resurrects into this guy's body after he had committed suicide, and when he wakes up, 2 or 3 other people have also committed suicide. Sorcerers show up, and they start questioning him. Through some sequence of events, he finds out that he is what is called a beyonder, which is basically a sorcerer, the people that can ascend to godhood through these steps. And he joins a organization, like a police task force, sort of other Beyonders who are trying to stop people that are using their magic for bad purposes. The setting is sort of like a Victorian England steampunk, but there's so many different technologies that they obviously wouldn't have had. There's a larger mystery at play. There's a mystery with Klein, there's a mystery going on of people dying, and different cults and different groups doing things to the public. He's working his way up. He's leveling up his magic, trying to solve the mystery of the person that actually was in his body before him, and his own abilities. Like I said, and as the title alludes to, I would say the anime is largely a mystery. It's really unclear what any of it means, and it's not as if Klein himself, unaware of how the world works. He is very aware, he's very intelligent, he quickly combines clues to figure out what's going on, but it's you as the viewer who is just really unsure about everything, about how things work, about the conclusions that he's come to. And like I said, I think part of it is a translation thing, and also part of it, I think, is the intention of the author. This is based on a Chinese light novel, I believe, or a web comic or a web something, and I am interested in picking it up. I did find it online for free, and I do want to give it a shot and see how it goes, just to see if I can go into season 2 with a little bit more clarity than I have now. But it's gorgeous. The animation is gorgeous. It is so enrapturing. Like, I am someone that really struggles to watch TV, and so I have to watch in short bursts. But with this anime, this and another on the list that I'm going to talk about, I could just sit down and get completely lost in the episodes and not realize what's happening. I watched all 12 episodes, I think, over the span of 4 days, and that is very, very unlike me. I watched the first 2 episodes with a friend, and then I just marathon the rest of them all in like a very short period of time. And so it's just been, it was a delight to watch, and I really enjoyed it. Going into season 2, I hope that there's a little bit more, like I said, clarity of what's going on. I would like to understand the underlying magic system a little bit more than I already do. It might be a situation where I either read the novel or I go back and watch the first couple episodes again just to get a better understanding of how the magic system works. Then, of course, if you are in the anime space, you probably know that the new season of JJK, Jujutsu Kaisen, is out. We are 3 episodes in, and I'm just very excited to see where this story goes. There are so many fascinating characters, and the thing that ties me to this series in particular is the emotional investment of the main character, Itadori. I don't want to spoil a lot of what's going on with him, but he is embroiled in this sorcerer world after he does some things, after some things are done to him. And in this last season, some absolutely devastating things were done to Itadori that have completely changed him as a character, changed the trajectory of his story. And as one of my favorite anime characters of all time, I am just so eager to see where his character goes and unravel more secrets of his past. I know that Gojo is icon from this anime, but I have my own issues with Gojo. I like him. I think he's cool, but he's definitely not my favorite, and I am massively, massively invested in Itadori. So this season is going to be heartbreaking on many levels, and I'm sad for it. I am also currently watching, the last TV show that I will be watching coming up is Rain. I'm going to be doing my final video for the Rain recap series. So I will be watching that soon. Very excited for that. So if you also love Rain and are excited, look out for that. It should be coming out within the next couple of months. So then there's a couple of books that I did want to talk about. The first being Goddess of the River. It follows a woman who was a goddess. She was the goddess of the river, and she is forced onto Earth by Shiva in the river. And so she's forced to watch humanity flourish in the form of the river and watch the pollution and the destruction that humans bring. And this incenses her. And she hates humans. She has a ton of vitriol for humans in the very beginning. She really can't see any bright spot to humanity. She has godlings. They're described as godlings. Best friends of her, families of hers. They use her rivers as kind of like a safeguard against humans. One day they play a prank on a local farmer. They take one of his cows who's been blessed by the gods, and this angers the farmer. He uses the powers granted to him by the gods. I believe Shiva is the one that grants. Curses the godlings and Ganga, who is the river goddess, basically be mortals. The goddess Ganga will rebirth the godlings, and once they pass away from their mortal life, they can go back to an eternity of, happiness or, eternal rest, essentially. King comes across her in her mortal body and convinces her to get married. She joins in the marriage, knowing that she then has to she needs to get pregnant to give birth to the godlings. She kills them in an attempt to, release their soul. She's unable to kill one of her children, her last child. He is taken away by her husband. She ends up becoming a goddess again. She's forced to watch son grow up under his father, the king's rule, corrupt kingdom, who is rife with war and despair and death, while she's watching her son, who is a god, grow up and eventually ascend to a place of influence. She is trying to influence her son to move beyond mortal strife and rule from a fair and godly place. Through some scheming from his father and from other family members, he ends up not being the heir. So he raises the heir, the grandkids, the grandnephews, all of that, and he is a pretty influential person in the kingdom. We're following her trying to influence the future, and we follow him trying to stave off this war between all of his family members. It's a really, really heartbreaking but hopeful story. The reading experience for me was stunning. The storytelling was gorgeous. The writing is atmospheric and lyrical and beautiful. And I found my heart to just be so full of love for Ganga, even though she was such a fascinating and frustrating character. I loved her so much, and I wanted her to peace at the end, like peace that a god could have. even if it doesn't look like, humanity's piece. But there's so much heartbreak. There's so much grief and despair in the story. But touching down on the story of Ganga based as a retelling from such an important epic in Hinduism really connected you to this being that's been a god since the beginning of time, and their discovery of humanity in such a touching way was a really wonderful experience to have. I was not familiar with the Mahabharata, which is the Hindu epic that this story pulling from. Being introduced to that text in this way was very helpful. That being said, there's a couple of things that contribute to the lack of rating, we'll say, for this book that I am currently holding. First of all, I think I read this at the perfect time. I have been in the past couple of months entering into a bit of a fixation on history and specifically antiquity, and I have been obsessed with channels like Fig Tree, and so my brain, I think, is primed to engage with a story like this, and I'm just in this mode of like absorbing as much information and stories as I can at the moment. And so I think all of that contributed to me really loving this story. Aside from that, because obviously reading is so subjective and it really depends on where you are at in your life, how you connect to a story. But aside from that, after I finished the novel, I read a ton of reviews from people who are familiar with the original text, and I'm going to leave some links down below for those reviews that break down all of the inconsistencies, the inaccuracies, and the problems with this story, the way that it takes the original text and changes things or it leaves things out, the way that it rewrites some thought processes, ways that the events would have actually been interpreted at that time. I'm going to leave that down below. So I don't feel right knowing that such an important text is not being received by people who are familiar with it in a good way. People that are disappointed with the liberties that the author took and the ways that it was changed, anti-Hindu presentation of the story in some ways, changes to gender identity, and just a lot of stuff. I don't necessarily feel right calling this like a perfect book, an amazing book, given that context. But as far as a book is concerned, as far as the reading experience is concerned, I think it was a lovely story. Having a context to a retelling changes things, because this isn't like a standalone story. This is a retelling of something. Obviously, retellings often take liberties, but I think when you're dealing with an epic that is so crucial to Hinduism, to rewrite in ways that are harmful is not the best. Like I said, the book and the reading experience was great, but I feel like that context is important to have. Moving on, ended the year by reading Hopeless. I believe this is the last book in the Chestnut Springs series by Elsie Silver. Now, I have had mixed experience with this series altogether. I have read every single one of them. The only one that I didn't finish was the one before this one, which was a surprise pregnancy situation, which I don't love. I didn't love the way that it was handled in the story. I think I got about 30 to 40% of the way through, and I just wasn't a fan of the way that the story went. So I decided to DNF it, but I then moved on to Hopeless. This one follows a character that I was concerned about as the series was going on. And something that I have noticed, something that I did notice as I was reading this series, is the tone of this series really changes as the series goes on, and it really was obvious in this one. So we have Beau and Bailey. Beau is, I believe, the youngest son of the Eaton family, and in the previous novels we saw him go to combat and have some very scary health issues going on. And then Bailey is a girl who comes from a bit of an outcast family, consists of her older brothers and her father, and they are known to sell drugs, take drugs, they're in and out of prison, all that kind of stuff. But Bailey has tried to avoid that life from a very young age, but because of who her family is, everybody in the town town ostracizes her. At the beginning of the novel, Beau is really struggling with flashbacks and finding his place in the town and in his life. He doesn't feel like a hero, even though everybody in town constantly calls him a hero, and they constantly want to talk about what he's been through and how he's dealing, and he doesn't really know how he's dealing, and he doesn't want to talk about what happened to him. One night, he goes into the town's local bar, and he becomes immediately interested in Bailey, who is there bartending. They spark up a little bit of a flirtationship, and this is really the first time in a long time that Beau has really felt anything. Emotionally, he is very hollow. He's very empty. He doesn't find a lot of joy in much. And bantering back and forth with Bailey and listening to her jokes brings that sense of joy back to his life. This ultimately results in them forming a pact that she will pretend to be his fake girlfriend so that she can better her reputation and hopefully get a job to earn some money to leave town like she wants to and go to university. And he will get people off of his back, essentially. His reasons for it are a little bit murky, I'll be honest, but they join into this pact and it ultimately results in them fake getting engaged, and she moves on to his property, and they obviously enter into a relationship. At the end of the story, was really unsure how I was going to feel, because there's a lot of aspects to the story that I wish were explored that were not explored enough, in my opinion. Largely, I would say the mental well-being of Beau. There's a ton of mentions about therapy in this, the need for both characters, but specifically Beau, to go to therapy, get help, all that kind of stuff. And he never does. Doesn't really, from what we see, try to improve, try to get better, other than through Bailey, which is giving the pussy saves lives, which I don't like. Not everybody goes to therapy, and they find ways to work through it in healthy ways. There's obviously symptoms of his PTSD that show up throughout the story that are resolved, but it's like resolved through Bailey, which I don't, again, like. The majority of the story was for sure focused on Bailey and Bailey's reputation and Bailey trying to get out of the town. By the end of the story, like I said, I wasn't sure how I would feel. I did feel happy and resolved with where the characters landed. The thing that bothers me, I think, about this series is that the stories, like book 1 and book 2, are very fun, very flirty, full of like sexy tension. Elsie Silver is great at writing sex scenes, sexual tension. She's great at writing chemistry between characters, but I just think those outside elements maybe aren't what I would want from an Elsie Silver book, and maybe that's why I'm feeling a little bit unsatisfied with Jasper's story and with Beau's story. Because I liked Jasper's story, but again, it wasn't like perfect for me, kind of for the same reasons. So, yeah, I mean, I have also not heard good things about Elsie Silver's newest series, so she's not someone that I, like, am itching to pick up. She's not someone that I'm gonna read everything that she puts out. There's a reason authors are popular. Sometimes it's just like, okay, what the fuck is this? But I think genuinely for Elsie Silver, I can see it. And then another series that I ended up wrapping up at the end of the year was the Plated Prisoner series. In my Kindle Unlimited ranking video, I talked about that I was reading the last book in the series, and I ended up finishing it by the end of the year. So, without going into spoilers, because these are long books, I felt like going into the last book, we were at a weird place with all of our characters. We had some new things cropping up that I just didn't feel like had a place at the end of a fantasy series. And so I was really unsure how the last one would go. Like, would everything be satisfied? Would I like how it wrapped up? Would I feel good moving on from it? And I'm happy with the way that the story ended. I'm happy with where our characters ended up. All of the plots resolved themselves in a way that makes sense for the series, but also left a little bit open if she decides to return to this world at a later date, which I probably would read. This is one of my favorite fantasy romance series I've ever read. I think Raven Kennedy has such a unique writing style. It all just fits so well together, and she's very popular, but I do think she's a little bit underrated for how good she is. So she is an author that I would read more in this world, and I would read other books from her. And then let's talk about the games that I have been playing recently. I have taken a step away from filming videos, reading, really anything, because I have been completely obsessed with Ranch Sim. This is not something graphic-wise, story-wise that I tend to like, but my friend messaged me and was like, hey, this is like $2, we could play it together, it's co-op, whatever. So I started playing it with them, and it was so fun. It was so fun. If you are someone that has ADHD, I think this would be a fantastic, like, brain off game for you, because there is a level of management to it. It's a ranch sim, okay? You get a letter that one of your family members has died, you move there, you take over the ranch, and you're building your ranch up. What's the end goal? No fucking idea. But it's fun to, like, have pigs and horses, and you can train your horses, you can grow your ranch up, all that kind of stuff. Got it after Christmas, and it's now the middle of January, and I have already played 60 hours of it, which is very rare for me. I do not play a ton of video games all at once. I'm very slow about wrapping things up and playing things. I'll play something for a couple hours here, come back in a month, play it again. You know, I'm that kind of gamer. And this one has just completely sucked me in. There's always something going on. There's always something to build, to work towards. And just, like, having your character go to bed at night and, like, you wake up and your farm is just, like, you can see your little cows and you can, it's just so rewarding, so satisfying. And it's, like, something you can just get lost in for hours on end. And I have been completely single-mindedly obsessed with it. So, game of the year? There are some other games that I have been playing that I think are worth mentioning, because I would want everybody and their mother to pick these games up, please. The first one is Tavern Talk. This is for the bookish girlies that really liked Legends and Lattes. You are essentially a innkeeper that's running a bar with magical potions, and a bunch of different characters are coming in, and they're telling you their story of their adventures, and you're giving them potions based on what they want, what skills they want, going into different missions, and you're also collecting gossip and rumors all together to, like, form quests and stuff for them to go down. And the potion picks that you give them, the potion ingredients that you give them, all affect their storylines. And it is a delightfully, like, storybook narrative story with relatively low stakes, low energy. Like, you turn it on your computer and you're clicking a button. You're obviously brewing potions and things, but it's not like action, it's not combat, it's not an intense, like, open world thing. It's just a delightful little storybook that is so warm and comforting. It's like a warm hug. It's like you get to check in with your friends on their adventures, and you don't have to, like, get involved in the adventures. You just hear about them, you hear about how the world around you is changing and how your little decisions are affecting this major world. I think it's such a lovely concept of, like, the everyday little decisions impacting the entire world and creating ripple effects that you don't even know, like, you can't even conceptualize. It's a delightful story. If you're not a cozy gamer, if you're not a gamer in general, I still would urge you to pick this up. It's such a like a good, fun, cozy time. Like, if you have a Switch, you can play it on there, I think. If you have a PC, it might be available on Mac. It's just so nice and relaxing, and it's very intuitive. Like, it's very much like the options that are given to you, nothing feels wrong. Like, nothing feels like the wrong decision. It's just whatever feels right to you, and it's just a warm hug, like I said. So, pick it up, please, and then talk to me about it. Tell me who your favorite character is, what storylines you're invested in. I want to talk about it. Last video game that I want to talk about that I would recommend 1,000,000% is Tiny Bookshop. This is also for my people that love to read. If you love to read and cozy game, get it on the Switch, get in your little comfy chair or your comfy bed with your tea, and play this game. This is, I think, one of the best cozy games that I have ever played. It is a little bit of a management moment, so if you're not a big fan of management games, I would say still check this out. Now, if you detest them to like your very being, don't, because it is a management game, but it's really low stakes. Like, it's very low stakes. If a customer like comes in and you don't have a book that they want, it's not that big of a deal. And you get to recommend books to people. So basically the story is you own a little bookshop inside of like a portable van trailer type thing. Moved to this small town called Storybrook, I think, something like that. I just be pulling that out of my ass from once upon a time. It's possible. Bookton, something like that, something with book in it. And you are going around to different locations in the town that you slowly unlock over time, and you have regular customers that come in that tell you about their lives, and you're recommending real books to them. Like, you have a shelf that have all of these titles that you know, that you love, and they're requesting certain things, and you have to like match the book recommendation to what they're requesting. And like I said, it's relatively low stakes. If you don't have a book that matches what they want, they're just like, oh, darn, that sucks. Or if you give a recommendation that's like, oh, that sucks. And maybe that day they don't buy a ton of books, but they'll come back, and it just feels so calming and relaxing. And if you love books, it's so satisfying to be like a little bookseller. Like, that's all of our dreams, to be like a little librarian or like a bookseller who can be like, here, try this, and like it's their new favorite book and you're so excited about it. The characters remember what you recommend them, and they'll come back and be like, I loved this book, I blew through it, I loved it so much. And I think that's just so satisfying. It blends like my two favorite hobbies, and it's lovely. I'm urging you to pick it up, please, and tell me all about it. So that is it as far as the things that I want to talk about in this video. It's been quite a while since I've filmed, so I'm sure that this is just overly long and I'm just all over the place, but I'm so happy to be back. That being said, I want to give a little bit of an update, and I wanted to include it at the end of the video because if you've stuck around this long, you probably care about the channel, not just popping in for recommendations or whatever. So I want to say that the channel is going to look a little bit different going forward. I have been talking about this in the past couple of vlogs about how, okay, well, my camera died because I talked so dang much. But I wanted to say that over the past couple of videos, especially towards the end of the year, I talked a lot about my mental health changing, my creativity changing, who I am as a person changing, and what I want out of my life. And the core of who I am has not changed. The reason that I create has not changed. Being very open and vulnerable with you, the reason that I created this YouTube channel over 6 years ago, it was 6 years ago last week, was because I wanted a community. I wanted people who wanted to talk about the things that they loved like I did. It started out as a book channel and it evolved from there. Have seen many phases of my life, as I'm sure you have, and with that, my creativity changes, but the core of who I am has not changed. That desire for community has not changed. But as I am going through life, I'm wanting different things. I'm wanting to express myself in different ways. So this channel is going to look a little bit different. I'm going to be focusing more on media and book videos, more analysis, like not in like a scary, intimidating way, but like in a fun way. Talking about the things that I love, analyzing the things that I love, recapping the shows that I love, exploring new facets of media and books. And I hope that you guys will join me. I found so much creative fulfillment and so much fulfillment as a person from my deeply emotional vlogs where I was just taking you through my life. And they were exactly what I needed at that moment. And I hope that if it was something that you needed, that you found that and it fulfilled the need that you had at the time. but it is not something that fulfills me anymore. And I know that a lot of you probably joined based on those more intimate, vulnerable moments. And I want to tell you that I'm not getting away from sharing my life, particularly in my reading vlogs. I will still be sharing my life with everyone, but it's not going to be as if I'm flaying myself alive every week for the consumption of others. Obviously, I think at the moment in the time I was doing it for a reason, and I just don't need that sort of outlet anymore, which I think is great. It's a point of pride for me. It's a feeling of growth within myself that I never thought I would achieve, but that does mean change here with my creativity. And I'm not going to cater to what I think will do well, what I think people are looking for. I'm going to do what feels right and fulfilling for me creatively. So I hope you were along for the journey. I hope that you find a place in this community that I am trying to build, and I hope that you will enjoy what I put out going forward. So that's enough talking for today. I need to get back to all of the videos that I'm currently working on because there's a lot of them. I know I took a break, but I hope to come back with at least one video a week, but I will not be pushing myself because a lot of these plans that I have are very big and require a lot of time and energy, which I'm excited for. So that's the update. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I would love to talk down below what you have been reading, watching, and gaming on recently, what you have loved. I really hope you consider subscribing if you're looking for more content like this, because I will be doing a lot more of these chill, like sit down and just yapping sort of things where I'm like talking in depth about the things that I'm enjoying or whatever thoughts that I'm having, without going full-on hours-long analysis. So I really, really appreciate you staying till the end of the video. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I will catch you guys in my next one.